Hello and welcome back to the AtheroTalk podcast. We are excited to bring you another episode packed with valuable insights. This is episode 3 and I'm your host. I'm Azin Kheirkhah from the Institute of Genetic Epidemiology at the Medical University of Innsbruck. In this episode, I had the privilege of interviewing Professor Nicola Ferri at the European Lipoprotein Club meeting in Tutzing, Germany. Professor Ferri is a full professor of pharmacology at the University of Padova in the Department of Medicine. His primary scientific focus is on drugs that influence lipid metabolism and atherosclerosis. With over 140 peer-reviewed publications and several honors to his name, he is a distinguished figure in the field. So stay tuned for a fascinating discussion with Professor Ferri as we dive into his research and insights. And a big thank you to all our wonderful listeners for tuning in. Your feedback and support mean the world to us, so don't forget to share your thoughts. Stay with us for more exciting episodes of AtheroTalk. We also hope to see many of you at the upcoming EAS Congress in Glasgow. Be sure to register as soon as you can. Until next time, take care and stay curious. Hello, Professor Nicola Ferri. We are thrilled to have you here today to discuss your trajectory and your impressions on current atherosclerosis research. On behalf of the EAS Young Fellows, I would like to thank you for accepting our invitation. So in this interview, we want our listeners to get to know you better and also your research. So could you please introduce to us yourself for a couple of sentences?
Very welcome. It's actually an honor for me to do this interview, this podcast. I'm a professor at the University of Padova in pharmacology. I'm a pharmacologist, so I graduated in 1996 at the University of Milan. And then I went abroad for almost 5 years in Seattle, Washington, in the US, when I worked with Professor Russell Ross, which is actually a pioneer of the atherosclerosis and pathology. And I learned a lot. I really learned a lot. And then I came back to Italy, in Milan, and then I moved from Milan to Padova. And now I'm just a full professor in pharmacology at the Department of Medicine.
Thank you so much. Actually, we're going to get into the academic journey and all the questions we have from you. But first, we want to ask you some more personal questions. So the first question is, how does a typical day in your life looks like?
Well, the typical day, the most important thing is always be very available to anybody from Monday until Sunday, anytime. Also during the summer, during the winter pause, anytime. This is the most important thing for our job. And so I usually wake up at 6:30 a.m. and I go to the job approximately 8 a.m. I'm in my office. And unfortunately now I work all my time in front of the computer. But before that, obviously I used to work in the lab and in the animal facility, so to do experiments. We actually relax me a lot. Now just to spend all the time in front of the computer is really stressful. And obviously I do also a lot of teaching duty. So I teach at the medical school 120 hours per year in Padova, and an additional 48 hours in Treviso. We have another city where we actually do these lessons. And this is the part of the job that really don't excite me a lot, but I have to do it. Obviously, this is my job. And I prefer to do science and to write, especially. I write really a lot, review and also original article. And then I think also write projects and our research and think about something new. And the best thing of our job is actually the freedom to decide exactly what you want to do in the future and what you want to do in the present. So this, I think, is the most important part of our job.
Yeah, that's actually true. But how do you actually relax a bit as well? So it's very work-oriented, and how do you actually try to take the time to relax a bit to be more energized for more research again? So, for instance, do you have specific hobbies that you can tell us about?
Well, I have one hobby, I would say, sport. I do a lot of sports, especially during the winter. And I used to run on Saturday morning and Sunday morning when I have time, just 1 hour, not that much. And then as another hobby, obviously, to have some meeting after my job with my friends to have some appetizer, some spritz, and some alcoholic beverages, which is always very fun and very, very useful for stress out your day.
Yeah, that's also the aperitivo time.
Exactly.
In
So
Italy, right?
basically, my job is just sport and drinking.
That's actually very nice. Thanks a lot. And so, is there something that you do specifically to find the right balance between work and life? Or do you think this is really sort of impossible if you want to be very successful? How does...
Well, you always need to be considered that you don't have only the job. You also have to have your private life, which is very important. Your family. I have 2 kids. Actually, I'm not kids anymore because my daughter is 17 and my son is 15 years old. So it's always very, very nice for me also to spend some time with them, especially during the dinner and so during the evening, and also during the vacation, the holidays together. And that's, I think, is the most important part. But unfortunately, I spend probably too much time working every day. So that's probably my it's something that I should a little bit, or I should change about it. But we'll think about it.
Yeah, well,
Maybe later on in my life.
Yeah. And is there something you personally want to achieve in the next couple of years? As in something to change, as in something personal?
Well, difficult to say. I actually like what I'm doing now. Maybe achieving, just move to a different directions in what we are doing in science. Just because I've done a lot of work on a particular pharmacological target. Just because I'm a pharmacologist, I really try to find something else. Just always in the same area, obviously, but maybe find some more exciting challenge to achieve in science, I would say. And then obviously to have maybe a bigger lab, more people, and have more grants, more money, and more projects to finish. So I think that's another point.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Then I will actually change the subject and we go more into academic-related questions because we have a lot of young listeners. They want to know about your academic journey and so on. So you said that you spent around 5 years in the United States, right? So can you also tell us, so maybe I let you speak about it. What was your academic journey? What happened that you got into your current stage?
Well, it was quite difficult to get a position at the university. I graduated in 1996. Then I did a two years of specialization in pharmacology, experimental pharmacology in Milan, and then a PhD for 4 years. So total 6 years after my graduation. And during the PhD, I went to Seattle, Washington, and then I came back to Milan when I got not permanent position. So it was like every year I have to find the money, the fellowship to provide my salary. And I did that for 12 years. So before getting finally a position at the university. It was actually a researcher position, which is not a permanent position, it's just a temporary position. And which was actually supposed to be for 3 years. But I actually cut it in one and a half year because then I moved from Milano to Padua, where I got another not a permanent position for 3 additional years. And then finally, I found my full professor, associate professor position at the University of Padua. I think it was at the age of like 45, 46 years old. So until that, I never get a permanent position in my career. Yeah. So it was a very long and very long story.
I think that's one of the issues with academia. It's very difficult to have a permanent position. And so that's why a lot of people just give up and then suddenly go to industry or they change jobs.
Well, I can tell you that unfortunately, some people cannot do this kind of career because they don't have a lot of support from the family. Obviously, I got fortunate because my mother and my father support me a lot in this career, because for a very long time I really didn't get a good salary. So it was very difficult.
Yes. And so can you tell us about your experience in the U.S., as in what are the things that were present in the research in the United States that you think were absent at that time in Italy in the research, and did you try to implement some of those skills, some of those aspects in Italy when you came back?
Well, in US, I found incredible people, really. Well, the first thing that I found that professors in the US don't spend time for teaching. They basically 100% of their time they spend in research, which is very, very useful. And they really give me a lot of incredible background, especially on how to think about new projects, how to write new projects, and also how to, obviously to do the experiments. But it was really a different way to think about in the future. They're really incredible people. And another thing that I realized that in US, people don't complain; they just resolve problems. So if there is a problem, they find a way to resolve it, but not for now, for today, forever. So they have to find a solution that will resolve the problem from now until the end of their life. So that's something that I really learned from them. And never complain, never. Just
so you think
keep going and work hard, and then you resolve everything.
So you think they have a better perspective about the future and planning how to
absolutely, especially the planning, to plan the future and to really think out of the scheme, and also thinking in the future and really planning. The plan, I think, is the big difference that I found from US and in comparison to Italian people.
And so you think you are now implementing this into your lab to help it?
I'm trying to, yeah. That's what I actually bring from US to Italy for sure. And that's why I think it's very important for anybody to have some experience outside their own country, because you really open your mind, actually learn a different approach to do science, to do your work. Unfortunately, then when I came back to Italy, then I started again with teaching. So I really spend. Now I think I spend almost 70% of my time just teaching. The 30% for science, unfortunately.
So do you think there should be this law that, like, I don't know, some researchers should just really focus on research and not do the teaching side? And do you think this is a better thing to do?
It's something that we are discussing since many years in Italy, to have two types of professors. One more focused on teaching and one more focused on science and on research. Because do both, that doesn't really work.
It's very difficult.
Yes, it is very difficult. That's why I have to work like 11 hours a day, because otherwise you cannot do everything.
Yeah. So this would help in the work-life balance as well. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, of course, during your academic journey, were there mentors that really helped you or really affected how you see your research, how you deal with your research, or even like in order for you to find your niche, were there some mentors that you can maybe mention? I mean, if you're fine with mentioning names or just...
Sure. I have two main mentors. One was in US, Atherosclerosis. In Italy was Alberto Corsini, which was actually a person where I did my master thesis in 1995. So I actually started, my first experiment was March 5th of 1995. I still remember it. And it was very, very nice to spend time with him. He is a very funny guy and also an excellent pharmacologist. And he really teach me how to approach to different things, especially to study every time, because I call him every day, basically, since many years, already almost 30 years. And he's really still very excited to learn new things, to study, to always be prepared on new stuff and new obviously in pharmacology. And this is something that really excites me, because he's never been sick. So now he's 74 years old, but he's still excited about his job.
Yeah. So you still do you still do collaborate.
Oh, yeah, also today I call him. So we call every day. Since obviously now I live in a different city, but we are still collaborating every day.
Yeah. That's very interesting. And what do you also think about interdisciplinary collaborations? Because, like, for instance, so you're more focused on pharmacology, and so how do you see this?
Well, this is something that I should improve it, for sure. That's why I leave this kind of approach to my my future fellows like Mariia, Giovanna, Lupo, she's definitely better than me for doing this. I know that this is kind of my limitation. So I'm a pharmacologist. I think about pharmacology. I'm not really very, very good on open to different directions. So.
Yeah. But that's really nice. It seems like you're a very nice supervisor as well.
I hope so.
And do you have a specific advice for researchers, young researchers who are trying to follow your path in research?
Well, I would say it's a tough job, but very difficult. You have to always go ahead and never look back, and always keep forward and be excited. So it's this kind of a job that you really need. You have to like it, because otherwise there is no advantages to do this job. There is only the nice to do science, to decide what you want to do every day. Because obviously my colleagues that actually graduate with me, they went to the drug companies. They have a much easier life than me, for sure, and they raise much more money than me. But I'm happy. I'm very happy about this job. So this is something that I think is the most important thing of your life.
Exactly. Yeah, so you really need to have the motivation to keep up with all the obstacles you face, and so it's...
Nobody tell you what to do.
Yeah.
So you come to your office and you have to decide by yourself what to do.
Yeah. I mean, the flexibility in there is also nice, which I don't think in a company really exists, but there is a lot.
Yeah. If you consider that I don't have a job, I don't have a boss, so I can decide exactly what I want to do. Yeah. I can do nothing or I can do a lot. It depends. It's up to me, which is very, very exciting.
Yeah. That's the nice part. So, okay, let's change some gears. So can you give us some more details on your current field of research? Are there some new insights? Are you excited about some results you want to share with us? Something very briefly.
Okay, very briefly. So I think we have two main things in the lab that kind of excite me. One is new possible regulators of LDL receptors expression. And so obviously we work a lot on PCSK9, which is one of the molecules that regulate it. But we are trying to find something else. And the other one is angiopoietin-like 3, which is another molecule very important for lipid metabolism. And actually we found that there is probably a connection between PCSK9 and angiopoietin-like 3. So we are focusing on these two main areas of research. And then we have also another part which are kind of probably easier for us, and it was actually studying natural products that can modulate cholesterol metabolism. And so we have also some PhD students that went to Nepal to collect some new plants, and we were extracting new alkaloids, and we test them. So actually on Thursday, I'm going to present new data that we got in the lab with new alkaloids that can somehow affect the cholesterol metabolism.
That's a very fun project for a PhD student, right? Yeah. that would be very fun. Okay, thanks a lot. And what are the current challenges or gaps in your field that you're most passionate about addressing? So you're working on PCSK9, ANGPTL3. What are the gaps you really want to address? Maybe there are a lot of them.
Well, kind of difficult to say. As a pharmacologist, I think we approaching a really exciting area, because now we have also, many new therapies that are now currently under clinical investigations that really will provide us a lot of therapeutic opportunities to control cholesterol levels, Lp(a) levels, triglyceride levels. So I think in the near future we are going to face a new era of pharmacological treatments for dyslipidemia and cardiovascular disease. And we are really excited to see all the results of the clinical trials, and to see new drugs that can be utilized for treat patients, and also convince patients that drugs are actually a good thing. It's not a bad thing. So we have to treat patients in order to control cardiovascular disease.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's very difficult to convince patients. I mean, already with taking statins is a big hassle.
You consider that after 1 year that you start statin treatment, 50% of the patients quit the therapy. So you lost already 50% of the patients after 1 year of treatment, which is really bad.
Yeah, this is horrible news actually in the field, but we're in a very good era to find new targets and to target them, basically. Yep. is there a publication that is your favorite one and you want to tell us, and every researcher in your field should have read it?
Well, I think there was one obviously on PCSK9 when we discovered that PCSK9 is not only in the liver. It was discovered that was expressed in smooth muscle cells and was found in atherosclerotic plaque. And actually, my boss didn't believe about my data, didn't want me to publish this data. Then I convinced him that actually I provide some evidence that actually PCSK9 was actually there. And then after we published it, somebody else also found the same thing. So actually support our hypothesis that PCSK9 was not only in the liver. So this, I think, was the most exciting manuscript paper or report that I remember.
Yeah, for sure. I have read that paper as well, the extrahepatic function of PCSK9. So it's very exciting in the field as well. So talking about this whole academic journey, we want to tell the young researchers that there is not always success, there is failure in the process. So in this podcast, we have something called the graveyard of ideas. And do you have, like, let's say, a grant idea, a publication, or anything that is like, there's a nice story for young listeners to know about, and to see that someone as successful as you can also have some failures?
Well, my main project in US was actually on collagen receptors, which was called DDR2. And I spent more than 2 years on the project. Actually, we discovered that these receptors was able to activate matrix metalloproteinases independently from the tyrosine kinase activity. And I think it was actually an exciting finding, very, very, very nice to be published. At the end of these almost 3 years of work, actually I left the US, I came back to Italy, and I never been able to publish this. So I spent almost 3 years of research for nothing. This was not very exciting. Actually, it was very bad because it was my main project. Obviously, fortunately enough, I actually published something else. But otherwise, I could come back to Italy with 0 publication, which was actually not very good for your career. And then in the academia, I remember when I applied for the first position, a researcher position, and a professor actually came in our office and tell me to actually don't apply anymore. So to retire my applications, because there was somebody else that was supposed to win this position. This is something that happened in Italy. I'm not afraid to tell it. So it's something that always happens in Italy. So the positions are not really open. Sometimes they're kind of open. It depends on the situation, the condition. It's something else that it happens to me, my career.
But how did you deal with the situation? As in, like, do you have any advice if someone faces such a failure? Like, let's say if you work, let's say, for 3 years on research and there's no publication, there's nothing. What do you do?
Well, I talked to my supervisor in US, but she wanted to do extra other experiments. She wanted to go ahead. I mean, what you can do? Nothing. You have to accept it and keep going and do something else.
And just move forward.
Yeah.
So it's something normal that happens for everyone.
Oh yeah, I think everybody has a similar experience for me.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot. This was very helpful, and I'm pretty sure all the young listeners will find this very helpful. Now we actually want to ask you your expert opinion, and that is, so as you work on PCSK9, it's a very well-established regulator of LDL cholesterol, and so now we have monoclonal antibodies, we have the small interfering RNA. We want to ask you that, so the small interfering RNA, it has the advantage of 2 doses per year. And this is not similar to the other small interfering RNA drugs in the industry. Can you tell us more about how this is possible? Like, is there any downside to it? Is there...
Well, this is a question that a lot of physicians ask us. So if you consider monoclonal antibodies, you can inject every month or every 2 weeks, or maybe inclisiran that you can inject every 6 months. It really depends on what you want to do. So the efficacy is pretty similar. Actually, inclisiran is a little bit less effective than the monoclonal antibodies. With inclisiran, we have minus 50% reduction of LDL cholesterol. and it's relatively convenient as a therapy, but you must remember that you have to go to the hospital every time that you got the injection. With the monoclonal antibodies, however, you can inject by yourself at home. So this is another difference that you have to consider. And I know that cardiologists they don't have time to actually follow all these patients, because they have to do the injection every 6 months. So I think it depends on the patient. Some patients maybe are more compliant to, have more attitude to the monoclonal antibodies. Some other patients are more maybe implied to have inclisiran. And also you have to remember that in inclisiran we still don't have the cardiovascular outcome. So in 2026 we will see the real efficacy of this therapy.
Well, thanks a lot. This was one of our questions, and the second one is that what do you think about the emergence of olpasiran, and what do you think would it resolve one of the major areas of debate, the residual cardiovascular risk?
Yes, it depends. Obviously, if you have Lp(a) very high, it's very useful. Otherwise, there is no reason to take it. So the residual risk, we have to also discuss about it, because probably we overestimated this residual risk. It really depends when you start to have lipid-lowering therapies. If you start at the very early age, like 25, 30 years old, and you reduce your cholesterol for the rest of your life, maybe by about 30%, the residual risk is much lower than we are thinking. So we really need to control cholesterol levels since the beginning, very early in their life, and to be early and aggressive. And then the residual risk will be much, much lower. Obviously, for people with Lp(a) very high, you have to do this kind of other approach. And again, we will see the efficacy next year in 2025 for olpasiran in 2026.
It would be very exciting.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, it's another area.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And just at the very end of the podcast, because this is dedicated to the young researchers, we also want to have this as somewhere to advertise if you have in your lab any positions for a postdoc, PhD, or if anyone can do research at your lab. Do you have any opportunity?
We definitely have an opportunity next year as for the PhD student, and at least one position open. And for postdoc at the moment, not, but for the PhD students, definitely yes. And we're very, very welcome to have a person not from Italy, from maybe some other country in our lab.
That's very nice to know. Thank you so much. And so we're at the end of the podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks so much.